Snow was falling in lazy spirals outside the restaurant windows, glimmering beneath the gold Christmas lights. Alicia Hart sat at a table for two, her hands folded tightly in her lap, staring at the empty chair across from her. The candle in the middle of the table reflected in her eyes, but couldn't burn away the ache settling in her chest. She had never felt so foolish, dressed in an emerald green dress she had saved for something special, hair curled with trembling hope, cheeks warmed by the imagined possibility of love. Her date was not late. He simply wasn't coming. The realization hit her like a slap of winter air, and the sting crept slowly from her throat to her heart. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the magic that can happen when strangers cross paths, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps keep these stories alive. Alicia had been convinced by her coworker to try the blind date. He's sweet, thoughtful, recently widowed, she had said. He's looking for someone gentle, someone who understands life's scars. Alicia had smiled at that, she understood scars intimately. Losing her mother to cancer the year before had hollowed her in ways she never could have predicted. The empty apartment she returned to each evening had become a museum of the life she used to know. She had told herself this dinner might be a fresh start, a flicker of joy during the holidays. Instead, she sat alone among couples exchanging gifts and warm laughter, with her makeup melting into quiet tears. The restaurant smelled of cinnamon and roasted meat, of nostalgia and family. Soft Christmas music drifted through the air, and laughter bubbled from every other table. Alicia stared at her plate, white porcelain, untouched silverware, a sprig of pine nestled beside a single lit candle. It was as if the universe was mocking her, the perfect setup for happiness, with no one to share it with. She blinked away tears, embarrassed by how heavy her disappointment felt. She wasn't new to rejection, she had collected it like stray coins throughout her 20s. But this one hurt more, perhaps because she had allowed herself to hope. Then, just as she fumbled for her phone to confess the wreck of the night to her coworker, she heard soft giggles. Turning, she saw a little girl in a red velvet Christmas dress, blonde hair tied in messy pigtails, clutching a knitted teddy bear. The child leaned over a nearby chair, balancing on her tiptoes, eyes shining with innocent excitement. Alicia tried to smile, but her lips trembled. She didn't expect the small girl to notice her sadness. Children rarely notice things that weren't joyful, but the girl stared at her with unexpected intensity, as though sensing something deeper. The girl, around 3 or 4 years old, climbed onto the chair across from her and continued to beam. Alicia opened her mouth, unsure whether to gently send her back to her parents, when the child asked loudly, "Are you sad?" The question was so pure, so disarming, Alicia felt the dam break. She nodded once, unable to speak, and the girl's face softened. Without hesitation, she said, "Don't be. Santa will fix it." Alicia couldn't help the faint chuckle that escaped, a small breath of relief. Kids had the audacity to believe in miracles adults forgot existed. Just then, a man approached, tall, tired, and carrying exhaustion like a shadow. His hair was dark and slightly unkempt, his eyes heavy with long-term grief. "I'm so sorry," he said, gently lifting the girl into his arms. "She tends to wander when she sees someone alone. She gets that from her mother." His voice cracked before he cleared his throat. Alicia recognized the sorrow there, the kind she had seen reflected in her own mirror. He must have been in his 30s, handsome but worn, like someone who had forgotten how to look toward the future. "It's okay," Alicia said, wiping her cheeks. "She's sweet." The man offered a weary smile. "Her name is Lily." Alicia smiled back, watching the child nestle her teddy bear beneath her chin. "I'm Alicia." For a moment, they simply existed there, two strangers suspended in the glow of Christmas lights, united by loneliness and an unpredictable moment. Then the man's phone buzzed, and his face darkened. He muttered something about a rescheduled meeting for work, kissed Lily's forehead, and then whispered a goodbye to Alicia. She thought she would never see them again. But the night had more plans than fate had revealed. Alicia tried to leave the restaurant, but her coworker called her just as she reached the door, demanding a detailed account of the failure. She stepped aside, her eyes closed, voice trembling as she explained the empty seat. When she hung up, she saw Lily again, alone this time, sitting on a small couch near the fireplace, swinging her feet freely. Alicia hesitated. She had no business approaching other people's children. But Lily spotted her first and pattered over with breathless joy. "Daddy says we have to go soon," she said solemnly, "but I don't want to." Then she reached into her pocket and produced a tiny candy cane and pressed it into Alicia's hand. "You need it more than me." Alicia exhaled shakily. "Thank you." The child blinked at her, then whispered, "Are you going to have Christmas alone?" Every instinct told Alicia to lie, to avoid making this stranger's child worry. But the truth hovered like an icicle ready to drop. "I think so," she replied softly. The girl frowned deeply, as though such a thing was criminal. Before Alicia could retract the words or comfort the child, Lily blurted out, "Do you want to be my new mom?" Alicia's heart stalled. The restaurant, the lights, the murmured conversations, all of it faded into stunned silence. Alicia crouched down, hands gently cupping the child's small shoulders. "Sweetheart," she began, but the girl's wide innocent eyes were already filling with tears. In those eyes, Alicia saw everything she had lost, her own mother's warmth, the promise of belonging, the ache of loneliness. She swallowed hard, struggling to form sentences, when the father returned, pale and horrified, and immediately apologized. "She doesn't understand," he murmured, clutching Lily to his chest. Her mom passed almost a year ago. She asks sometimes. She doesn't know how to grieve yet." Alicia felt her heart splinter in ways she hadn't known possible. "I understand," she whispered. Her voice was quiet, almost fragile. The man looked at her with surprise. "Really?" Alicia nodded slowly, explaining how she had lost her mother too, how she'd spent last Christmas in a hospital room inhaling antiseptic air and counting seconds between heartbreak. He listened, and the strangest thing happened. Lily stopped crying and reached out a hand toward Alicia's. Alicia held it, her skin warming at the gentle pressure of the tiny palm. A part of her that had been numb for a year flickered alive. The man eventually coaxed Lily back into her coat, apologizing once more, insisting that Alicia shouldn't bear the emotional weight of a child's confused wish. But as they stepped toward the exit, Lily twisted in her father's arms and shouted across the room, "I like her. Don't be sad anymore." Alicia laughed through fresh tears. That night, she went home to her empty apartment again, but something had changed. She sat beside her small artificial tree, placed the candy cane beneath one of the twinkling bulbs, and whispered aloud for the first time in months, "Maybe things will get better." The universe listened. 2 days later, on Christmas Eve, Alicia went to the town square for the annual tree lighting. She didn't expect to run into anyone she knew, but the festive crowds, bundled children, and wafts of hot chocolate offered a comfort she'd missed. She watched families take photos beside the giant ornament archway and wondered what her mother would say if she could see her now, trying to rebuild pieces of her life. Then, as though summoned by fate itself, she heard a familiar giggle. Turning, she found Lily standing beside her, holding 2 cups of cocoa like peace offerings. Behind her was the father, his eyes soft with recognition. "I wasn't sure if you'd come," he said. "We live nearby. I thought it might be good for Lily to get out tonight." Alicia accepted the cocoa, thanking him awkwardly. The 3 of them stood under the enormous tree, surrounded by the hum of strangers and the glow of 1,000 lights. Lily chattered happily about her Teddy's Christmas wishes while Alicia listened and smiled, speaking to her as though they were longtime friends. The father introduced himself properly. His name was Daniel, and she learned that he worked as a contractor, juggling long hours and parenting alone. The more he spoke, the more Alicia saw the contours of a man fighting his way through grief. For the first time in months, she didn't feel alone.